Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. Another day, more madness when it comes to Donald Trump and the Mar-a-Lago raid. Um, uh, I'm not feeding you an onion headline. This is from Rolling Stone. Donald Trump is demanding he wants his classified documents back. Yes, Donald Trump is telling his lawyers, get my top secret documents back. In the weeks after the FBI's Mar-a-Lago raid, former President Donald Trump repeatedly made a simple sounding but extraordinary ask. He wanted his lawyers to get, quote, my documents back from the federal law enforcement. Trump wasn't merely referring to the alleged trove of attorney-client materials that he insists was scooped up by the feds during the raid. Two people familiar with the matter told Rolling Stone. The ex-president has been demanding that his team find a way to recover all of the official documents that Trump has long referred to as mine, including the highly sensitive and top secret ones. Sources close to Trump agree with outside legal experts that such sweeping legal maneuvers would be a long shot at best. I hate to break it to the former president, but I do not think he is going to get all the top secret documents back, says one Trump insider. That ship has probably sailed. You think? Further, several longtime Trump advisors say they want absolutely nothing to do with the now infamous boxes of documents, fearing that any knowledge of them could invite an unwanted knock on the door from the feds. Who would want any of that back? If it is what they say it is, keep them the hell away, a second advisor says. Still, the former president's legal team appears to be working to retrieve at least some of the papers seized during the August 8th federal search. In recent days, the Trump team, led by former federal prosecutor Evan Corcoran, has been quietly preparing an additional legal arguments and strategies to try to pry back material that the feds removed from the ex-president's Florida abode and club, the sources say. Those measures include drafting a so-called Rule 41G motion, which allows, quote, a person aggrieved by an unlawful search and seizure of property to move for the property's return, according to the federal rules of criminal procedure. This would be a follow-up measure to the lawsuit filed by Trump on Monday, calling for the appointment of a special master to review the Mar-a-Lago materials for potentially privileged materials. It is unclear when the ex-president's lawyers plan to file a subsequent motion, which people close to Trump expect to be more narrowly tailored to what the former president apparently wants. However, White added, Trump is, quote, basically trying to litigate the ultimate issue in the case, which is whether he had the right to possess and keep those things, even after he was asked to return them. It's very unlikely that the court would accept that invitation to litigate that. He would have to prove that those things were illegally taken. And based on what we know, that is going to be very difficult to prove. So where do you start? First of all, Trump has no right to any of these documents, even the declassified documents. They belong to the National Archives. He clearly has no right to classified material. But it seems like with Trump, you know, it's kind of like his whole modus operandi has been repeat the lie, repeat the lie, repeat the lie, normalize the lie, normalize the lie, normalize the lie. Normalize what's abnormal, normalize what's abnormal. So it seems to me this would be almost like Trump in his own warped mind trying to normalize him having what we're now finding out was closer to 700 documents, 700 classified documents down at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, it's just crazy. I don't really know. Let me rephrase. I know what he's thinking, which isn't much. I don't really know what the lawyers and the people around him are thinking, because how do you really deal with someone who clearly thinks that the law does not apply to them, clearly doesn't probably understand the law, or he does and just tosses out that understanding? So when you couple this, that he's basically hawking his lawyers to get my classified information back, get those classified documents back, there's also this new Washington Post story. This is a synopsis of it. A few stunners. Team Trump delayed the FBI in reviewing top secret documents for a month. Trump hired a new lawyer with no vetting. Wonder if they're related to Sidney Powell. And records seized at Mar-a-Lago reveal carefully guarded U.S. intel gathering methods. So that makes a lot of sense to me. If there was urgency among the FBI, DOJ to get those documents back, it's not only that he might have had documents that pertain to nuclear programs, but he might have had documents that pertain to or are related to U.S. intel gathering. By the way, U.S. intel gathering, if you know a little bit about the CIA, is a pretty dirty business involving lies, cover-ups, infiltration, the U.S. installing puppet leaders through coups. But so not all U.S. intel gathering methods are on the up and up. Actually, most of them probably aren't and are quite sinister, which is why the United States intelligence apparatus doesn't want Donald Trump to have it in Mar-a-Lago with God knows who's coming in and out of Mar-a-Lago at any given point. Let me read a little bit from this Washington Post story here. FBI's Mar-a-Lago search followed months of resistance, delay by Trump. Donald Trump's lawyers received ominous news in an April 12th email from the National Archives. The FBI would soon examine sensitive documents the former president had reluctantly returned to the government from his Florida club 3 months earlier. The communication, which has been reviewed by the Washington Post, was a crucial pivot point in the probe of Trump's handling of classified documents that led to the dramatic search of his Mar-a-Lago club earlier this month. Within weeks, Trump would have new lawyers to deal with the documents, and the FBI's attention would shift from top secret material Trump returned to the archives to classified items they believed he had kept in Florida. One lawyer who received the email, former White House Deputy Counsel Pat Philbin, would be interviewed by FBI agents who considered him a witness in the rapidly expanding investigation. Some of Trump's allies have blamed the rush and haphazard packing process during Trump's final days in office for the presence of documents the FBI found in Trump's bedroom, office, and first floor storage room at Mar-a-Lago on August 8th. But the key events that led to the FBI search took place only this year, after months of slow-rolling conflict between the former president and law enforcement agencies. Some material recovered in the search is considered extraordinarily sensitive, two people familiar with the search said, because it could reveal carefully guarded secrets about U.S. intelligence gathering methods. One of them said the information is, quote, among the most sensitive secrets we hold. And again, some of that U.S. intelligence secrets and intelligence gathering is most likely not on the up and up, is most likely quite sinister, possibly brutal, et cetera, that we don't want other countries knowing about. And frankly, we don't want the American public knowing about, i.e., remember waterboarding and torture? I digress. Let's read a little bit more here. In a legal filing on Monday, Trump's lawyers insisted that he had been cooperating with the Justice Department requests. In fact, however, the narrative they laid out, as well as other documents and interviews, show that Trump ignored multiple opportunities to quietly resolve the FBI concerns by handing over all classified material in his possession, including a grand jury subpoena that Trump team accepted on May 11th. Again and again, he reacted with a familiar mix of obstinance and outrage, causing some in his orbit to fear he was essentially daring the FBI to come after him. So there was a grand jury in this, and obviously that led to the subpoena that he received months ago. In a May 10th letter to Trump lawyer Evan Corcoran that was released Tuesday, acting archivist Deborah Steidel-Wall outlined weeks of resistance that followed the April 12th email. Trump tried to delay and thwart the FBI review of the records he had turned over to the archives in January. Steidel-Wall wrote, despite a finding by the Justice Department that the records included 100 classified documents comprising 700 pages of material, some of it extraordinarily sensitive information related to secret operations and programs with very limited access on a need-to-know basis. Quote, it has now been 4 weeks since we first informed you of our intent to provide the FBI access to the boxes so that it and others in the intelligence community can conduct the review, Steidel-Wall wrote, adding that Trump's lawyers had asked for more time to determine if the records included documents they considered protected by executive privilege. The May 10th letter said the government lawyers had concluded that executive privilege is held by the current president, not a former one, and that President Biden had delegated to Steidel-Wall the decision as to whether the FBI should be allowed to view the records. Quote, I have therefore decided not to honor the former president's protective claim of privilege, she wrote, indicating that she would allow the FBI to begin viewing the records in 2 days. Before it was released publicly, the letter was published by John Solomon, a Trump ally who runs a news website. In Trump's inner circle, concerns has been rising since June that the former president has created legal jeopardy for himself, according to multiple people in his orbit. Mar-a-Lago is a big problem, one of the people said. This part's interesting to me, and that President Biden had delegated to Status Coup the decision as to whether the FBI should be allowed to view the records. So why I think that's important is at this point, Trump's not really playing a legal game or really doing anything that legally makes sense. His filing on Monday to appoint a special magistrate to go through the documents to see what is under executive privilege is bunk. A judge has already followed up asking, what are you specifically asking for? Because again, these things don't fall under executive privilege. He's not the president anymore, and they're classified documents. So it's kind of crazy on its head. But the fact that the Washington Post is reporting, and again, my reading of this is that Biden was peripherally aware of what was going on, that Trump had all these documents, the level of classified documents he had, that Trump was stonewalling the National Archives, the FBI. I don't know how to interpret that other than, and that President Biden has delegated to Status Coup the decision as to whether the FBI should be allowed to view the records. So that is going to create a right-wing meltdown of epic proportions. The reason I say that is they're going to say Biden was in on it. This is Biden going after his political opponent and likely 2024 presidential opponent. He directed the FBI and DOJ to raid Trump. This is a Biden, Hillary, George Soros conspiracy, right? So to me, wait for that shoe to drop. Wait for them to tie Biden to this. I find it very hard to believe Biden wasn't aware of all these things. He might have not been aware that the DOJ, that the FBI was raiding Mar-a-Lago on August 8th. From all reports, he was not tipped off to that. But obviously, Biden was peripherally aware that the former president was, playing hide and seek with treasure trove of classified documents and God knows what, nuclear programs, sources and methods, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, it's very, very troubling, shall I say, the least. All of this is very, very troubling. And honestly, I'm hesitant because we do live in the United Corporations of America. See the flag, get your shirt at statuscoup.com/store. You could get your United Corporations of America shirt at statuscoup.com/store. Just saying. It's our most popular seller. That's statuscoup.com/store. But I digress. We do live in the United Corporations of America. And, when's the last time somebody really went down? A former governor, former mayor, former president, and actually was prosecuted, convicted, and served serious prison time. The few times we've had, wealthy white elites serve prison time. You had Jeffrey Epstein in his essentially a bed and breakfast prison stay where he got to work out of his office and leave the prison for the most part. And then when he was prosecuted, he, killed himself after he was convicted. So, I don't want to be naive and think this time will be different and Trump could be prosecuted and convicted. I actually think Trump would sooner, end his life than go to prison. But, there's so much smoke here. I don't really know what legal defense he could have for any of this. And not only, he can't really toss it and he can't really pin it on his aides or people that just threw these things in the boxes. I didn't know what was in there because more and more reporting is out there, likely from his inner circle that, tipped off the FBI and ratted him out. He's definitely looking for the rat, Sopranos style. Tipped it off that he was personally going through these boxes. He was personally deciphering what would be returned and what would not be returned. So I don't really know, how he would get out of this, really. It doesn't look good. I mean, in terms of him going through things personally, this is from the Washington Post story. Agents were told that Trump was a pack rat who had been personally overseeing his collection of White House records since even before leaving Washington and had been reluctant to return anything. The FBI became increasingly convinced that the former president continued to hold classified documents in Florida, people familiar with the investigation. So he was personally directing taking these documents. So I don't know. I don't really know what he does to put lipstick on this. But a couple days ago, it was 300 documents. Now it's 700 documents. Who the hell knows where we're going to finish? And by the way, to be clear, to be consistent, as I always tell you, don't automatically believe what the CIA tells you. Don't automatically believe what the FBI tells you. Definitely don't automatically believe what politicians tell you. You have to take things issue by issue, case by case, and look at it with critical thinking. However, in this case, you have subpoenas. And in this case, to get the actual search warrant granted, to raid Mar-a-Lago, the FBI, DOJ, they had to provide a judge evidence, not just that he had classified information, but that he was committing crimes, that he was committing crimes with the classified information. So to me, I say, provide me evidence. That's why I was always, a skeptic and called Russiagate bullshit, because I said, show me the evidence. I hear a lot of hysterics from Rachel Maddow and Donna Brazile, but I don't see any evidence here that, Russia hacked the DNC and all this stuff. I see a lot of conjecture, speculation, and hysteria. In this case, it seems that evidence was provided to a judge, or else if it wasn't, then that judge was playing politics. So we'll see what happens, but that's the day's news. Donald Trump is demanding that his people get his classified materials back. And the number is now up to 100 classified documents spanning 700 pages that he wants back. Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in to Status Coup's daily live stream Monday through Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time and Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern Time.